All right, Yidden. Tonight we're going to be doing Siman Zayin, Chazzarah u'LeMaaseh. We're going to read it inside and go through the practical stuff. Not a very long Siman, shouldn't take us too long. And the premise of the Siman is as follows. It's primarily a gzeda. It's essentially a gzeda. It's essentially a decree, a prevention measure that one should not bake bread together with milk and meat. Rephrase that. You must keep bread parve. That's the main decree here, is baking bread, because bread is a food item that is regularly eaten with other things, either meat or milk. A grilled cheese sandwich or pastrami sandwich both use the same bread, right? So bread is an item that's commonly eaten with both types. So therefore, come the Chacham and say, do not cook it with one or the other. And if you did, you're not allowed to eat it, even alone. Not even with the type that it was made with.
But this is a gzeda.
It's a gzeda, a preventative measure. So because it's a preventative measure, we're first going to learn the essence of the measure, and then we're going to learn the limitations and how to avoid this measure.
Does the limitations include cooking it in a dairy pot?
We'll get to that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's read that. Yeah, you with me? So Zion, Sif Aleph. Ein Loshen Isa, one should not knead dough. B'chalav with, Elliot's here. B'chalav with milk. One should not knead dough with milk. Shema, perhaps, you might forget that there's milk in it. Yavai li le'echlam basar. And he'll end up eating this meat bread with his pastrami sandwich. Yeah, that's the gzera. Because looking at the bread itself, it's not recognizable. It's regular bread. It's not recognizable that you use milk in there. Yeah. Now, ve'im losh, if you went ahead and violated this decree, and you kneaded your dough with milk, kol hapas aser, it's forbidden to eat the bread, afilu lo'achal levada, even to eat it alone. The gzera remains. So even though you're eating it alone and it's completely kosher, it's just milk and bread, forbidden to eat because you violated a decree, and as such, the bread is awesome. Now, ve'im haya davar mut, if you, to begin with, this is very important to begin with, and I'll get to that in a minute. If to begin with, when you made the bread, you made only a very little amount, an amount that's only eaten in one shot. So you made let's assume there's a machlokes machaber ramah, because we'll see in a minute. Sorry? Yes, like Zion. So let's assume there's machlokes machaber ramah here, and the implication of machaber is that you're baking to begin with only the amount of bread you need to eat now. So let's say you're baking a bagel, one singular bagel, and you're going to be having it now for lunch as a cheese sandwich. Okay, so you can make that bagel with milk. You're making the dough. Because you're only making one, and you're going to be eating it now. And because you're going to be eating it now, there's not going to be the issue that you might end up eating it with something else. You're eating it now.
So that's allowed?
That's allowed. That's exemption number one. Exemption number two, or if you change the shape and the look of the bread. Where you look at the bread and you can tell it's different, even if it doesn't indicate that it's milchik. We'll get to the details when we get to our u'LeMaaseh part. But as long as the bread raises curiosity from the one who looks at the bread to ask, why is it differently shaped? And that alone serves as a reminder to say, well, actually, the reason why it's shaped differently is because it's baked with either milk or meat. So it serves as a reminder. That's that's loophole number two.
In what case would you bake with meat?
Hmm?
In what case would you bake bread with meat?
Like in a
Let's say I was going to say, you create like a meat pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
So that is different because you'd actually see the meat itself.
Right.
It's even a greater siman, right? But the milk is more likely, where you have certain, let's say, croissants.
The croissant is not the shape of a bread. It's got a completely different shape.
Okay, but that's right, precisely. And
Right.
for the person who looks at it, it says it's likely milchik.
Right.
Right? And something like that. All right.
People put cheese and bread. They bake together.
Like a grilled cheese?
No.
Okay,
Burritos?
we'll get to that in a second. Let's get to that. Let's get to it. Let's first learn. We'll get to it. Okay. So that's number one, two. So either you're baking so little that you're eating it all now, so there's no problem, and therefore you can bake it with the Shulchan Aruch tastes as milk, or the reverse. Or you made the bread in a different shape so that you're looking at it, you can see it's different and unusual for a purpose. And that change in look of the bread reminds you not to eat it with meat. Then mutter, it's permissible to bake it that way, to knead it that way, and to eat it that way. Similarly, the reverse. The first din was kneading dough with milk. The reverse is going to be an oven pass, one should not bake bread in an oven that was, you grease the oven with fat of an alya. Alya is like the tail
The ox.
of a sheep,
Okay.
which is very, very fatty. The Gemara talks about it as a very choice piece of meat. I assume because it's not a muscle that's used a lot by the animals.
It's like what they put on the shawarma there, the fat of the lamb to make.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you use that fat to grease your oven, and you're baking your bread on it. As we're going to see in the u'LeMaaseh, this is because the actual surface of the oven is getting greased, and your bread's going on the surface of the oven. Today we don't bake on the surface of our ovens. Today we bake inside pans. We'll get to that again in u'LeMaaseh. But it's just talking about the oven is itself greased with this fat.
If you're talking like a pizza oven or a bagel oven, which is straight.
Which is that's like that. So that would be an example of that, a bagel oven where you have it directly onto the surface of the oven. That there too, you cannot bake it with this. Yeah? How are you? Now, in awful, and if you went ahead and baked bread in a oven on a surface that was smeared with this fat, it's fleshig, and it's the same halacha as bread that was baked, kneaded with a dough that was kneaded with milk. You may not bake it this way, and if you did, you may not eat it. You may not even eat it alone.
But then the same halachas apply if you make it with a siman or if you make it in a different shape.
Same thing. Same thing. So you make it in the shape that will remind the eater that, hey, this is fleshik, or it's different enough that the person eating it will ask, what's the deal with the shape? Or you made an amount that's small enough to be eaten right away. Then it's okay. There's no issue. You can eat it all right now. Lachain, therefore, says Rama, because we allow these conditions that you can bake bread with either milk or meat if it's going to be eaten quickly, and if it's in a different shape, or it's in a different shape. Noigin is our custom, says the Rama. Lilosh pas b'chala b'chag HaShavuos. People bake their bread with dough that was kneaded with milk on Shavuos because they're going to be eating it that day. Right? Gam as well. The custom is that the people would knead the dough of their challah on Shabbos, the shuman with fat, the covered Shabbos for Shabbos. He calls that because this too is considered a small amount. And here's where I was saying that it would seem like there's a machlekes Mechaber Rama. Mechaber said you have to eat a little bit in order to get away with making bread that's either with milk or meat in it. You have to make so little that you'd be eating it now right away in one shot. Right? What was the Mechaber's language? Eating it in one shot, which would imply one meal. Right? But the Rama seems to be extending it. If you're going to be eating it in one day, that's also considered a small enough amount. Because Shabbos, when it comes to Shavuos, you could be baking bread on Shavuos itself, right? When it comes to Shabbos, you're not baking bread on Shabbos. You're baking bread before Shabbos.
For 2 meals.
And it's for 2 meals, 3 even for your Shalosh. And that's still considered eating a little. That's still considered baking a little bit of amount because you're eating it over the next period of time when you're eating on the fleshik.
Isn't the concern though that if you leave it over, somebody might take it and eat it with the wrong
Leave
thing?
it overnight to breakfast
So
in the morning.
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that about if you're making so much. But if you're making only enough for Shabbos, and on Shabbos you only have fleshik meals, then it's okay if you had a fleshik challah.
What about breakfast in the morning? Your kid wakes up.
And your house, you don't have breakfast in the morning. My house, like in my house, my kids eat chocolate in the morning for breakfast.
That's the best.
So it's all fleshik.
Coming to your house tomorrow morning, Shabbos morning.
Every Shabbos morning, my children have chocolate for breakfast. Every Shabbos morning. So there's no milk basically in my house on Shabbos. And I'm sure many homes like that, not just my own. So there, says the Rama, you can bake fleshik challah if you're making only enough for Shabbos. And that's considered a small amount because it's going to be eaten within that time frame of a day. As opposed to the Mechaber, which seems to imply you can only make, if you're going to be eating it right now in one shot, where the Rama seems to be more lenient that you eat throughout the whole day. Clear? Okay. Yeah. And therefore, to your point, the Bach writes that if the person always makes, or you're making challah such that you know you're going to have leftovers Motzei Shabbos, and you can't make fleshik challah. Because the Ramah's heter is that you're eating it, you're preparing it now for the short amount of time for the day. But if you're baking and you always bake more than you need for Shabbos, so you can have leftovers for the week, which is what actually does happen in my house, then I lost my heter. I can't bake fleshik bread.
But isn't it the custom today that we don't cook bread and like, especially like obviously caterers and stuff, they're not supposed to cook bread in anything but a Parve oven.
That's what we're learning right now.
Right.
This is what we're talking about.
You're talking about now if I make bread in my
We're
own
talking
house.
about, well, this
myself.
applies to the caterer. This is the halacha we're learning.
Mm.
But the limitations left. So the caterer is not making a davar mut. Let's say the caterer was only making for this wedding. And this wedding is a fleshik meal. You'd be allowed to. It's only for this.
Because it's going to be eaten only
But the
with.
caterers don't
right.
usually bake their own bread. The caterers buy from the bakery. And the bakery has no idea who's buying it. Right? So
they
they
cook-
must keep it part of. Right? But if the caterer is making just for this meal, but then I must go even farther. You can make for the whole Shabbos. If you know you're only having fleshik Shabbos. But as the Bach is pointing out, that if you are regularly making the leftovers, then you can, and back to the original square one, where you have to make it part of. Yeah? Clear?
Mhm.
Continues Ramah. Gam, additionally, besides for the heter that you have for Shavuos and Shabbos because you're eating it within that day, you have another issue. The shape of your Shabbos bread is different than the shape of your weekday bread.
Right.
It's braided. So if we know that braided bread is always Shabbos bread that remains fleshik,
That's a Siman.
that would be Siman. And the same thing apparently was the case when it comes to Shavuos, where they had different shaped bread.
What's the shape
Yeah, we
of
make a round
Shavuos?
challah.
Shavuos making milk bread.
Yeah, we
But
make a
what's the
round
shape?
challah on Shavuos.
Well, Shani also make round challah.
Yeah.
Right, but it seemed like they had some different shape. I don't
But
know.
now everybody that's selling.
Oh, so it's very important to understand that this hefter change shape is very much relevant. It's very much a question of the mitzvahs. What's the reality on the ground? What's the reality on the ground? And the reality on the ground is this: most homes when I was growing up, the challah was eaten. So there's only challah Motzei Shabbos. I'm thinking about now growing up.
Motzei Shabbos?
Yeah,
You're saying if it's not Shabbos, it was only Motzei Shabbos?
yeah. The Motzei Shabbos, I don't remember every challah. So I'm growing up, but sourdough, let's say,
Goes to a week.
throughout the week, sure, it makes a batch Thursday night and we eat it throughout the week. Right, so that would be definitely something that I couldn't get away with making milk and fleshik, because I ended up eating throughout the week with both milk and fleshik throughout the week, right? So it really depends on the reality of on the ground and whether or not your Siman actually is a differentiating factor for from other breads.
Are we going to cover,
Right.
so I don't ask this, are we going to cover cooking it in milk and fleshing?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you did use your oven 24 hours and you put it on a blech.
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, fine.
At least in Ramah, but also came additionally, how much more so, platin. Platin is cheese curls, I guess. I don't know. I guess
Like
that's what it's called.
barikas, no?
Barakas, cheese barakas, yeah. Or pashtida, which is meat barakas. The mutarin, you're allowed to make those because it's patently obvious that this is either cheese or meat. But even if it isn't, even if it was completely enclosed and you can't tell what's inside, because everybody knows those things are stuffed, before you eat it, you ask, what is this? So even if you cannot see, if you can see the meat and the cheese, then for sure it's a Siman. But even if you can't, by virtue of the fact that it's a stuffed bread, you ask, right? If you ever pick up an egg roll, unless you know this is a pot, you always ask, is a meat egg roll or not a meat egg roll?
Breakfast.
Or
There's
barakas.
10 different types.
Sorry?
There's 10 different types.
Correct.
You want to know what you're eating.
Exactly. So the shape of the baraka itself already informs you to ask. That's what I'm saying. The change of shape doesn't mean it has to tell you it's milk or inflation. It has to be changed enough that you're going to ask, what is this?
Oh,
Like a cheese Danish. You don't ask that it's cheese Danish.
Well, no, because it's
No,
obvious.
what I'm saying
That's
is,
in the middle.
when it comes to a croissant, for example, not all croissants are milchik,
Yeah.
but the shape will tell you, ask before you eat it. Because you know, many croissants are milchik, so ask. So if you get a barakas, you're going to ask first, what's in it? Right? So the shape already tells you to ask. But nobody ever picks up a slice of bread and says, is this bread fleshik or milchik? Nobody asks
change
that.
the shape enough, it won't tell you whether or not it's fleshix or milk.
It just gives you a
It'll
hint.
give you the idea. That
Did you need to ask something
Has-
different here?
No,
Correct.
has ever made it tell me this.
Correct. Correct. That's correct. So it doesn't have to, if it informs you that it's milchik or fleshik, then certainly it's not a problem because you see the cheese, which is why you can have pizza.
Because you
It's
see it.
bread.
It's obvious.
You see it. It's obvious, right? Or even a meat pizza. Doesn't matter. You see it. You see the meat. You see the cheese. But even if you don't see it, but the shape tells you this is different, ask. Then that too is permissible. Hence the barakas and the croissants. Okay, continues the Ramah, and now we start to get into the halacha of what's the deal with the milk and fleshik ovens? Okay, let's see. Ein lefa shum pas. One should not bake any bread in pladin together with cheese barakas in the same oven at the same time. By pashtida, or your meat barakas don't cook bread in the same time. The tan are in one oven. The chashinan, because we're concerned, shema perhaps yizav manashoman, some of the fat of either the milk, the cheese, or the meat will excrete. That's the word. Excrete. Thank you. From the baraka el hapas to the bread, and then the bread's getting milk or fleshik. You're not going to know, and you're going to forbid to eat it with the other type. Yeah.
Are we talking here about a closed oven, or is it even a?
We'll get into that. Good question. We'll get into that.
Tanner is completely closed.
Okay, so there are more than one concern when it comes to an oven. One concern is the steam, right? The zeya, the reyach, the smell, the steam which goes through. But here it's not the issue.
Why?
Because here the issue is concerned with is that there's going to be
Like a liquid that
excretes from either milk or meat into the bread. The issue is not the zeya. The issue is the actual.
What if they're completely apart in the oven?
Oh, so let's see if we can make that happen.
But in the older day ovens, you said they were putting it on the bottom so that liquid.
So let's see. Especially today, where you're going to bake them in pans.
No, he said before that they would like scrub fat.
No. Here you didn't do that. Here you have on your surface of your oven itself, so on one surface, a loaf of bread and your cheese baraka. And we're scared that the cheese baraka is going to squeeze out some cheese to go to your bread.
Right.
Right?
So you're assuming that it's not on a surface that's been greased.
Oh, but if you have different pans,
You say there, grease can't transfer.
now your only issue is the steam.
Steam.
Well, did you just say the steam was not a problem?
It's a closed oven.
It's not the issue we're dealing with here, but we have that issue because we have closed ovens.
Right.
Oh.
Right? So we may gain on one issue, but we lose on the other. Okay. So we'll get to all that. But let's see the Ramah. So the Ramah is talking about not a closed oven; it's an open oven. And the only issue here, the concern is that there's going to be cheese or meat going out of your baraka to the bread, and then the bread becomes milk or fleshik, and then you're not going to know and eat it with the wrong type. And therefore, can use the Ramah. The im zov tachtov. If you know that actually did happen, yeah. Now, there's two ways to understand what the next section of the Ramah. So I'm going to read it in both ways. Okay, I'm going to try to remember how we both go. One's from the Taz and the Shach, and the other one is from the Kresi and Plesi and others. So he says here, if you know, let's understand something first. There's a lot of doubts in this regard, right? First of all, is cheese or meat even going to come out of your baraka? Even if it does, who says it's going to make it all the way down to the bread? So it's a double suffix. Nonetheless, you don't do so in the first instance. But you cannot post fact and make something usher when there's a double suffix. Who said it even happened?
Suffix feka?
Suffix feka, right? Right? So now, therefore says the Ramah, if the im zov tachtov, if it actually did go, if the actually did make its way out. So now you're down to one suffix, not two. You follow? Yeah. Now the question is, sorry, but when the Ramah says here zov tachtov, that the meat or cheese came out and spilled outward, spilled to where? Did it actually touch the bread, or just come out of the baraka and make it onto the surface of the oven? Is that enough?
Because then it depends if it's open or closed, right? Because
Well, I know that it popped out. It wasn't closed properly. It came out.
I was saying, but if the oven was open, right, and it's open.
1 second. But we have another issue here, though. We're not dealing with the issue of Zaya now. So it came out, and now it landed onto the surface of the oven, and this oven absorbs.
So now if you put something
And now that bread is absorbing that also.
coming out, right?
So that's what the Shach and Taz learn. The cheese and the meat don't even have to go all the way down to the bread. As long as it goes to the surface of the oven, it's enough to make the bread problematic. Yeah.
The only thing is, small thing.
Yeah.
The kind of ovens that they're talking about would get very, very hot. Like like if you look at a pizza oven, it gets to over 1,000 degrees.
It doesn't have, why you have to assume that though?
Because that's just the way it is.
Why?
Because the oven's
You're
there,
imagining
like
one of those matzah ovens. It doesn't have to be that.
not a mozz oven, like a bagel oven or like a tunner, like you're saying,
doesn't have to be
it
that
would make it out of clay, right?
It doesn't be that so extreme. It doesn't have to be extremely hot.
Because if it was very
Could
hot,
be.
then it would burn it.
Maybe. We had that already the day before. It gets very hot, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that way.
You're saying the heat of the oven doesn't nullify the juices that
necessarily.
may be there?
No. That's what their Shach and the Taz are saying. Yeah, we're
It's not that hot, I guess that's what they're assuming.
assume, yeah. Every day. Yeah. So continues that mother for. So now let's learn like the Shach does. So the meat or cheese come out and land on the surface of the oven. So that's already considered as if the bread itself had milk and meat in it, and therefore you cannot eat it even alone. Okay.
This is a forbidden mixture.
Say again.
There's a forbidden mixture.
Yeah, not because it's a mixture, because the bread has either milk or cheese in it, and we have the Xavier that you know how to have fleshik or milk bread. Bread is the part of.
But if the milk
It's all that Xavier.
goes
There's
into the meat,
no,
now you
no,
have
no,
basar
no, no, no.
b'chalav.
No milk and meat is interacting.
Okay.
Oh, you're just saying if the actual liquid just falls into the oven
Oven,
itself.
and the bread now became fleshik.
Oh, okay.
So now the bread is also because you know how to have fleshik bread.
Okay.
Or the bread became milchik, and you know how to have milchik bread.
Right.
It's all in this Xavier.
Okay.
Right? Now, following this this reading, continues the Ramah following this reading. The Noyag, therefore, our custom is Lashon at Fela to put the baraka, whether it's either milchik baraka or fleshik baraka, the fihat tanar, put it at the opening of the oven, right, where the oven actually slants downward, right. To get this right according to the Machab, according to the Shach and Taz. Yes, you have to put it at the edge of the oven, right? And even if you put it into a pan, so you put the baraka into a pan, so you have no issue of the spillage because it's in a separate container. So no issue of the spillage. Nevertheless, it should still be at the edge of the tanar, at the edge. Why?
You're saying if it's slanted.
Even if it's sorry.
You're saying if it's slanted, it should be at the edge of the oven.
No, it
Because
should
the
be.
Shach is saying here that if the surface of the oven is not slanted,
Yeah.
or if the bread is higher
Yeah.
than where your pastita is, then no fats are going to ooze out
Right.
under.
And yet still you should have it at the you should have it in a pan. Our custom is to be machmer and put it in a pan also. A pan at the edge.
Good, because
And this is because of the smell. So that way, so you have two issues, right? You have the issue of the spillage that you covered because
Put it back.
you put it into a pan, and because it's at the edge of the oven, the steam goes out. It's not going to make your bread fleshik.
Okay. Because it's an open, it's
It's an open edge,
open. Okay.
right?
So, okay.
Which our oven doesn't have that. Our ovens are closed. Following?
Yeah.
So this just solve two problems. One, the spillage, and according to the Shach and the Taz, the spillage it doesn't have to make it all the way to the bread. It just needs to go into the surface. So no matter which one's higher or lower, the spillage onto the surface is a problem already. But so A, you have to put it into a pan. B, put it at the edge so that the steam of the milk and meat goes out and milk or meat goes out rather than go to your bread. That would be one way of reading it from Shach and Taz. Now let's go back and read it the other way. The other opinion says, if the spillage came out, the milk or meat spillage came out of the baraka onto the surface, that would not cause your bread to become fleshik.
Yeah.
That's not barnat. It's meat to oven to bread, not barnat. So you're the only way for the bread to come fleshik or milchik is if the meat or cheese actually made it all the way down there.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's read the Shulchan Aruch that way. Back to the imzov in the Mechaber in the Ramah. Yeah. Now imzov tachtov, if the meat or the milk secreted all the way out to the bread, now that bread is as if it was kneaded together with milk or meat, it's mamash fleshik or milk bread, and therefore it's also to be eaten because you may not eat a milk or fleshik bread because of the Xavier. Following with me? Mm-hmm. Therefore, our custom is to put the bereka, the fiat tan at the edge of the oven. And by putting it at the edge of the oven, where the edge of the oven is lower than the internal of the oven, so even if it does spill out, it's not going to spill upward, it's going to spill downward.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Vafilu. And now, secondly, vafilu hu b'machvas. What if I put the bereka into a pan? In which case, the spillage is not an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
So then, still, you should still put it at the edge of the oven only because of the steam issue.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then, okay.
So they
But I
both
thought we
agree.
said it was an open oven.
Sorry,
You just mentioned before that we're talking about an open
and
oven.
that's what putting it at the edge.
But
the
what do you mean by
steam goes
the
out.
edge? When you say an open oven, there's nothing
No
covering.
edge meaning at the opening.
So it doesn't.
But how is it an opening if it's open to begin?
It's, so you have it's open
Or oven nowadays.
oven like this with an opening like an igloo.
Yeah.
So you put it at the edge of the opening of the igloo.
But
So,
the igloo's covered.
yes, but this because it's at the edge, the steam doesn't get mamish trapped inside. Even if a little bit goes in, it's not enough to cause it to become flaky. That's what the commentaries say here.
Mhm.
Nowadays we have a pipe, like a hole usually.
But today, even if you have a pipe leading out of your oven, I don't think it makes a difference because all that steam gets mixed in your oven. It's not as if you put the bread at one particular location or the barek at one particular location and it's going to extract that steam and not mix it with the rest of the stuff. So I don't think the fact that we have a pipe and exhaust makes a difference nowadays because the exhaust that we have takes everything equally from inside out. It's not as if it extracts one smell more than the other. But in the olden days, where you're talking about a little door, whatever's closest to the door is going to be more going to be pulled out, right, and not going to go inward.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know that nowadays our opening make a difference. Okay, is that clear? We clear? So what do we have in this sip before we go to our practical stuff? Yeah? Are you with me? Mary, with me? Okay, that's an extreme version. It doesn't have to be that way though.
No, I'm just saying there's an opening on the top and there's an opening. There's a little door at the bottom. This is based on the
These-
illustration of the Geonim period.
I understand, but there are more than one oven at a time.
Sure.
But it could be it's the door. Think of an igloo
Yeah.
and at the edge of the igloo door
Yeah, I got
where
you.
it goes out rather than goes in.
Okay.
Okay, so what did we learn? We learned that you may not have milk or fleshig bread. Two conditions to get away with that. Either you have enough that you're eating it all today. We're taking Ramah like that. You're taking it.
Yeah.
Either you have either you're following Ramah that you are make only enough you need for that day. Then you can make a milk or fleshig because it's going to be eaten that day. Or the shape is different and it raises the curiosity of the eater and he knows to find out if it's fleshig or milk. Otherwise, you may not have milk or fleshig bread and you cannot even eat it alone. Never mind, not eat it with the other type. You can't even eat it alone. On its own. That's what we learned. Second thing we learned from the Ramah is that therefore one has to be careful that the surface that bread should not share the surface with fleshig or milk dishes. The same surface is the main point here, right? Because if it's on the same surface, we're afraid that it's going to secrete and make the other way. If it doesn't, if you did in the end, the evidence is fine because it's a svek, and only if you know that it came out does it become a problem. Either according to the shachataz, you know it came out to the surface of the oven, or according to the crazy, you know it came out and it made its way all over the bread. But it's only if you know that the transference happened, whichever opinion Taz or shachataz or crazy, only then does bread become milk or fleshig. Otherwise, it's svek because maybe it secreted, and if it did secrete, who said it made it all the way down there? And therefore, post factum, if you bake bread in the same oven as a pashtida, on the same surface as pashtida, it's not fleshig bread. This is assuming you avoid the issue of shared steam, which is going to be the subject of kovches.
But if you have an opening at the top, the steam rises and escapes the oven before it can even affect the other food. Because
Okay,
heat rises.
We're going to get to when we get to kovches, we're going to deal with that.
Okay.
That's going to be the main subject of kovches. But it should be noted again, it's like I told Aaron, I don't believe that our ovens make a difference. The fact that we have an
I
exhaust.
remember learning this in Terobis.
Now what?
No, I think it does. It makes
That
difference
our exhaust makes a difference?
if it's completely closed or not.
No, because the exhaust of an oven today is like this big and it's really just to
all the
release
steam
excess heat.
hangs around together.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty clear in our
But-
ovens.
But according to this now, the tanur that you're describing,
There's a
you
full
wouldn't
opening.
have that issue because
Exactly.
the flame and the fire would immediately escape.
Oh,
They
okay, so
wouldn't
that's going to be, I don't want to
restrict
say anything because I think in kovches.
Isn't there different types of ovens? The times of the Terobis?
Again, so in kovches, we'll discuss
okay.
that.
it. Mhm.
And what about you said sourdough
Okay.
is issue, not barnat, right? Something's baked in bread is baked inside of this.
I was saying the crazy and placey, they're of the opinion that if meat or cheese was secreted from a bareka and landed onto the surface of the oven,
Yeah.
then it wouldn't make the bread or milchik or fleshik because it's not banat. According to Shachataz, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. It should be noted. So let's do some practical stuff. First of all, it should be noted that the halacha here that the Shulchan Aruch tells us that this din from the Chachamim that one should not make milk or fleshig bread is not just a question of making it before it's baked, because that's the example given here. The example given in the Shulchan Aruch is either you kneaded dough with milk, or you baked it in a on an oven that the surface was smeared with fat from a goat, from sheep, right? Which means it became milk or fleshig before you baked it. But the din applies even after. If after you baked it, you made it milk or fleshig, the same din applies. You may not do that. Does that mean you can't make a grilled cheese sandwich?
No, because you can see it burning.
Because you can see it. So when you're making a grilled cheese sandwich, A, if you plan on eating it right now, it's for sure fine. B, you can see the cheese. Making it milk or fleshig is only making it milk or fleshig to such a degree that it's not recognizable. And therefore there's a concern of being
Or if it's when you bake it.
Sorry?
Yeah, or when you bake it originally.
Or when you bake it originally. In both cases, it has to be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Either when you bake it or post-baking, yes. This is pointed out by the Tzemach Tzedek. All right. Other din. If bread touched milk or meat, what's the din? Does it become fleshig or not?
So we said before, if it touches, we had this before, if it's called if it's dry, if it's dry, then you scrape off the.
So all the other din we learned till now apply here. If it's dry and it's not liquid and it's drying, then you can just scrape it off. And if it's hot, it's a question of tatagavar or not, right? And then it becomes fleshig or milk accordingly.
Arecha, we did.
We're not talking about recha now.
Didn't do recha.
No, we did not do recha yet. We didn't do recha yet. We're gonna get kofches to get to recha, but
When's go fast?
I don't know. It's a long time.
Probably a long time.
After Pesach.
yeah. Okay, that's number one.
Place, yeah?
Number two,
I guess it's recha most of
one should once lechatchila. We also learned this already in Pei Zayin, I think. What was it, Pei Zayin? Yeah. So it's Tzadik Aleph. We learned that one should make sure the bread doesn't touch milk or meat, because you might forget to scrape it. And we also learned that bread that was left over here on a fleshig table shouldn't be eaten with milk, because you don't know if it touched bread then as well. We also learned that in Pei Tes. If you have 60 to the ratio, so if you mix milk into that dough, right? But that dough is 60 times the ratio of the milk. What's the din then?
That's a tricky one. Well, you could say, I guess it would, it depends if it's like an important, like would you say, is it just like you put milk in, and in that case if it's or is
So
it
you want lechatchila or b'diavad? Let's start with b'diavad.
Yeah.
So milk fell in,
so
60 to the ratio. It's nullified.
then it should be okay.
Then it's perfect. Then it's perfectly fine. If you're not sure, 60 to the ratio. What do?
So it's a suffix.
Have a Jew taste. Have a Jew taste and see if you taste milk. All right. What about lechatchila? Can you lechatchila put a little bit of milk in, when there's 60 against it, and you're doing so because it helps the bread look better? Yeah. And you don't intend to eat it with meat. You intend to eat it with milk, or you intend to eat it alone.
So you're not making it
So it's first of all, it's only right. So you're not lechatchila making any davar aser, right? Because there's 60 to the ratio, and even the gzeira, well, you plan on eating it with milk, and you do that. So many poskim say yes, including, it seems, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. However, others say no, including the Tzemach Tzedek. Not the first time that this is machlekes grandfather. Okay. What about, since we just learned this Siman, what about putting onions or garlic that was cut with a milchik knife or cut with a fleshig knife on the bread? Can you do that? No, what do you think?
If the onions are cooked, you said that if they're cooked, they lose their sharpness.
No. Well, you cut, first of all, that's only relevant if you cut them after they lose their sharpness.
Right.
If you cut them before they lose their sharpness, you cut them while they're raw, not while they're cooked. So you cut onions and garlic. You can fry them.
Yeah.
You put them directly sprinkled on top of your bread, as people do. People have bread, onion, cut up onions and garlic,
Sure.
right? So, but those onions and garlic are cut up by a fleshig or milchik knife. Is that allowed? You're turning your bread milchik or fleshik. You're allowed to do that.
Of course not, because the knife, the onion absorbs. Let's say it was a milk knife, the onion absorbs the milk.
Yeah.
So you need a klipa.
And now you're making
Now
bread.
you make the bread, so now the bread would become milk.
So you should be lean stringent. You can't call it the same level of chumrah, because it's not bar not times 3. Because to begin with, the onion cutting with the knife is a naparnat, but we said the naparnat's not relevant because the sharpness reinvigorates the flavor. And then that's going to extend also to the bread. It's a little bit farther. But nonetheless, one should be machmer. Okay, and therefore, post factum, you can be makel, especially if the knife wasn't ben yoimai. Okay, other details. Now, we said, right, that if you bake bread, here with me, if you bake bread, then there are two heterim. Either you make little enough that you're eating it now, or you make it a different shape. And then you can make it either milk or fleshik. You can make it one or the other, because you have the siman that to make sure that you're not going to do the other. Either you're going to eat it right away, or you have a siman that you're not going to eat it with the other type. Yes? Okay. What happens if I went ahead, I baked, I didn't listen to the chacham. I baked bread with milk. I made a mistake. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take 2 slices, eat it now for lunch, and throw the rest out. Am I allowed to do that? Or I'll invite enough guests over, cut it up, it's only for now. Or change the shape. Oh, I changed the shape. Can I do that?
So make it
The answer is no. You have to do it before,
Yeah.
not after the fact. Once you bake bread in violation of the Chacham's Gzeira,
It's over.
you may not eat it.
Yeah.
You cannot fix it up
Why
later.
can't you put a siman right away?
Unless it is by accident. It happens. Milk fell there, then you can do that. Sorry?
Oh, if milk fell, then you can put a siman after?
Yes.
Say chalavi.
Yeah. Oh, now comes the next question. We'll get to that in a second. I want to get to that in a second.
If you have a head, like if it has a head.
Oh, label. Does a label help?
I was just gonna say, in Israel,
Let's see. We'll get to that in a second.
they actually have labels that they put in the bread.
Oh, because that's the only way to do it. You can only do it on the bread itself.
Right.
Okay.
You ever see that?
Oh, the packaging's not enough.
Oh.
It has to be on the bread itself.
In the bread.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
That's absolutely correct.
Toxic?
If you want
In
to have
Israel, they have that. When you go to
Yes.
bakery, you'll see like a little thing that's there and it's encrusted in the bread and it'll say Parve or
Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's like a tag.
stamp.
little tag. Yeah, little tag.
Oh,
Okay. The Taz, now, does this Gzeda, so the Chum and Gzeda, you can't make milk or fleshik bread. Does this apply to any other foods that are eaten with either milk or fleshik? Or only bread? Answer, machlekes. Taz, as you'll see on Taz number 1, that it's not just bread, it's anything that's eaten with either milk or meat cannot be made into milk or meat. However, others disagree and they say bread is a unique thing that the Chacham made Gzeira for, no more. But mezainis stuff, it's bagels or things that are often eaten with either milk or fleshik, that definitely has to remain part. Okay, we go through that. We went through that. We also address. Oh, so nowadays, okay, we went through that already as well. Okay, halacha beis. Everything's clear? 2 more sifim, we're almost done. Okay, let's finish it before 9 o'clock, hopefully. Beis, you be with me? Tanor should talk about Baalya. If you went ahead and you smeared the surface of your oven with this fat of this goat. Now it's fleshik. And we said before, you may not bake bread in it, but you want to kosherize it. You cleaned it out and everything. Not good enough. And by pas, you may not bake bread in there because you're not have fleshik bread. You have to burn it out from the inside, which means even if you heat up the entire oven, you eat from the outside to the point that the oven on the inside was sparkling hot. You have to heat it up from the inside. To the point that it becomes white and like sparks are coming from it.
Right, that's what I was saying before. Like it kind of koshers with the heat of the.
You'd have to heat it up to that point.
Yeah, so the
where it makes
white
it
spots is essentially the
those flakes are coming off.
Yeah, like the
You have
char.
to get that hot. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Self-clean oven basically does that already.
Yes.
And that's cleaning out from the inside. Yeah, vafilu imhu shel buchya. Even if it's this kind of oven that's called a buchya, which explained the parentheses, pirosh means klecheres, a earthenware vessel, shemasikin tachtav oifen olav ugois, where you put a fire under it and you bake bread inside. There too, you cannot heat it up from the outside. You have to put the coals on the inside and heat it up that way.
Oh, does that cause it to nullify if you were to take like
And that extracts the flavor of the.
charcoals and place them on top of the surface?
If it got hot to the point where it starts to peel. So yes, we're not learning halachas of hechsher, but this comes out if you want to kosherize a barbecue.
Right.
You have to you cover the grates with like a metal sheet, turn the grills up all the way, and even if the heat's coming from there, it traps on the top, and you'll see
Sure.
everything starts to peel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any practical things
They,
I
you
want
can
to
also
clear
use
from
it. That's
days?
you can also use like actual charcoal coals that are like red hot, and leave it on top.
Yeah. Second.
But that's about kashering, so you're right.
Yeah. So this was all, of course, in those days where you were heating up the oven heating the bread up on the surface of the oven itself. Today we don't do that. Today we use we have pans, right? So if you want to, right? So this is very important when you're baking bread now in a fleshik oven. So it's not the same fleshik oven that we just described in Sid Bays, because the fleshik oven we described in Sid Bays, where the surface of the oven itself, the same surface upon which you're going to put in the bread, was smeared with flesh.
Yeah.
That's the case of the Shulchan Aruch. It's not our case. So what's our case then? A fleshik oven which hasn't been used, even if it was used an hour ago, right? This is the case you were bringing to me, right? But the bread baked in there, right? As long as it's clean and nowhere is it touching the surface of the fleshik, it doesn't become fleshik, right?
Even if it's been yoma,
Sorry.
even if it's within 24 hours, or like you said, an hour ago. If I cook the cholent in the oven and then an hour later I put a bread in there, the bread doesn't become fleshik? Because an oven is a
No.
This is talking about an oven where you're heating it from the
Yeah.
outside, not the inside.
No, the Tana's on the inside. The other one was the Gufsis, the Kuvia, sorry, Bukhya, whatever it's called.
Bukhya.
That was in the where you're heating on the outside. This is where you had the other one, Tana, was you're heating on the inside.
Yeah.
But if it's nothing's in there,
But then the whole concept of ben yoma doesn't apply to this, is what you're saying?
if it's clean and
Because you don't cover
Yeah.
bread, right?
no, so you should right. So you're allowed to bake the bread. So you're allowed to break the bread in that oven, but not with the intention to eat with the other type, unless it's clean. Unless it's example. So the sourdough we make in our house, and Sil was asking of me before, when you make sourdough, first of all, most of the time it's covered inside its own container. But even at the end, when you open it up, the oven gets so hot on the outside, you kosherize your oven before you even bake your bread there. So in most cases, baking bread in a fleshik oven, if it has its own pan, part of a pan, not a fleshik pan, right? And your oven was clean, and you heat it up before you bake your bread is in milchik or fleshik. Why would it be milchik or fleshik?
Because it's ben yoma.
Ben yoma from what?
From the meat that was cooked previously before you.
Where's that meat?
Well, what do you mean?
Where's the meat? It's not there. You didn't bake it with the bread, with the meat. Meat's not there.
Meat is all, it's been in
The meat's gone.
all consumed.
Meat's not there anymore.
Yeah, it's in the sourdough case.
Yeah.
But in the chicken, let's say a beef, you're cooking right like through, not so
At the
hard.
same time?
Same time, yeah.
If you're cooking bread and meat at the same time, that's a different story.
Because the reich is mixing.
Now you have
Because
bleicha mixing.
Tastes are mixing.
Now you have everything mixing,
And if
right?
not,
This is not, sorry?
if not one after the other, aren't people machmir not to eat it with cheese after?
Because the oven might be dirty or something like that, so we're machmir a little bit not to eat it with cheese. Right? That's what I was telling you. We don't do
The
this kind of thing.
sourdough,
But to say you can't break bread that way,
Yeah, we're gonna see, what is that?
so you don't want to bake it.
But you have the time, the positive
Sorry?
flavor. Meat gives over a positive flavor.
There's no meat left. There's no
Because
meat
it was
in the
burnt
oven.
off from the heat of
It's
the
burnt
oven.
off. You haven't used it. It's clean. There's no meat there. It's at best not barnat, but it's not even. It's not barnat of zeya. Because you have a fresh part of a pan that you're baking your bread in.
There's different type of ovens. There's ovens that go to 800 degrees where you're only cooking flat type of breads. But if you take a whole challah, it's big and
Yeah.
it's voluminous. So what happens is, if you put it in a challah, the way we eat challah, in an 800-degree oven, it'll crisp the outside and not cook the inside. The oven has to be at around 350
Right,
degrees.
And I get that. Before you put your challah into the oven, if it's complete, your challah, if you make challah in your fleshik oven, right, and you don't have any other flesh in there, and you have part of the pans and sheets that are exclusively made for bread, so those sheets are never used for flesh, that bread is not fleshik. What would become fleshik?
The past 24 hours that she hasn't been used with her chila, right?
If it wasn't used 24 hours, then also even then it's fine. But let's just say we don't do benyami, right? So, but this is it's a sheet that's meant only for your challah. You only use this sheet, baking sheet for your challah, right? There's no actual meat at the time of the baking of your challah. Because it's not, the oven's clean. The keli is the problem. The
But
keli is uniquely part of a keli. That's what I'm saying. The sif bays, we're talking about kosherizing the oven before you put bread in there because you're baking the bread directly on the surface of the oven. We're not doing that. We're not cooking the bread directly on the surface of the oven. We're cooking on a part of a sheet. And you do at least some variation of kosherizing before you even put anything in there by heating up your oven. Especially with the case of sourdough where you're baking it up to 500 before you put anything in there.
Yeah.
You burn it all out before you put anything in there. We're talking about sourdough specifically. But even challah.
So sourdough, even with the chila, you could eat
sourdough,
it with
you
cheese
bake at a much higher degree.
The sourdough that it makes, I eat in the week with.
and then put it in the toaster and malchik toaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you put it in
It was
a
never baked. It's
in a container.
in a container. It's open for the last bit. But even when it's open, it's after hours of it being burnt out. There's no other food items in there while the sourdough's in there.
So you're saying that you can take a parve item, put it inside a meat oven, and because of the degree of the heat and the length of the heat, not only does it cook
Because nothing else is in there.
challah, but it also kashers your oven.
Not kash. I wouldn't call it kasher. I would say it makes sure that your food in there still remains part of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that I can
Right.
wrap my head around.
And then the pan though has to be part of.
Right,
If the pan is a fleshik pan, it's a different story.
but we
That's
learned
direct contact.
one of the first things that what happens if milk falls on the side of a pot, on the outside of a pot.
There's no actual milk now when you're baking your
Right.
powder. There's nothing there. There's no actual substance.
I got you.
Right? The only thing what's interesting though comes up now is if you reheat your challah on your challah pot. When you put our challah on top of the challah pot,
To warm it up. Yeah.
you should probably put a surface there unless you're going to be eating at that meal. Otherwise, that might become a fleshik bread. The steam comes out into your bread there. That could be a fleshik bread.
But that's after the fact. It was parve, and then you put it.
You made a fleshik, but you know how to make fleshik bread. Even after the fact we learned.
But you're gonna eat it right away with the challah,
That is fine.
right?
If you're eating it now at this meal, it's fine.
Uh-huh.
But you have to be careful if not left over. Okay, let's learn Gimel. Bread that was baked in an oven at the same time with grilled meat. And likewise vidogmor or fish. That was baked at the same time as open aired steak inside your same pan. They weren't touching each other. Also, you cannot eat that cheese or that bread with milk. Because of the steam that travels between the meat and your fish or your bread. That's what we're talking about. We're in the same time. All this is true, but cut in a small oven, which ours would be considered a small oven because everything's trapped inside. Tanner Godol, and this I think is to your point. We have a massive oven and a big hole in the top. Your point, yeah. Your big oven, the Tanner Godol Masik Shneim Aser Esrainim, which has 12 Esrainim of Ephah, which is 8 Tvachim by 8 Tvachim, according to our trusty footnotes on this wonderful edition of the Shulchan Aruch. And Piva Tanner and Piva Pesuach, and as an opening where the steam goes, it doesn't get trapped. Mutter, then it's mutter. That's to your point. Then you can eat the bread or that cheese or that fish with cheese, even though it's baked in the same time with meat. And if the bread is covered, the meat was covered, either it was covered because it was inside of a container, or it was covered because it was wrapped in dough, like pashtida, like our bareka, where the opening is closed, it's completely concealed. Then mutter, I feel and you can even bake it in a closed oven like ours. So if your meat is completely wrapped in foil and you baked bread, that bread remains part of.
Because
Again,
it's sealed,
assuming your oven is clean.
like that, no steam is coming out of the.
Again, assuming your oven is clean and no steam's coming out, yes.
Right.
But I look on Siman Kufches Kitzad Noigen. Let's wait for 108 and we'll find out exactly more details about Recha.
Okay.
Okay. I think that pretty much covers Tzaddik Zion. B'ez Hashem, on Sunday, we'll start to do our Chazzarah effect from Pei Zion. We have lots of Siman to do. We have Pei Zion, Peches, Peites. Skip to the Gimel. No, wait.
But they're all little.
Yeah, we did tell you also, we did on the.
So the Gimel.
So
Pei Zion, Peches, Peites.
88, 89.
So the Gimel's on the test, is it not?
So you go, maybe, you'd be right.
So the Gimel, so the Dalet, the Gaze, the Rosh, the Zion. It's a lot. So we're going to start to do that on Sunday, God willing.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful day, Eden.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
After
After I close it, before I close it.
no, you close it. It's not related to. It's gonna be